right. Well, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Talk About It Live with Frank and Manny. We're here in Del Rio, Texas, live. How you doing this morning, brother?
Good, brother.
Oh man, good to see you, man. We were out last week, so we're glad that you're here joining us this week here on Talk About It Live, and we got a lot of stuff going on. I mean, a lot of stuff to catch up on. Of course, the border crisis or border invasion is still going on. That hasn't stopped, hasn't slowed down, and just so much stuff happening in the world. To cover it all in an hour, man, just it's going to be impossible. We're going to try to do the best we can to cover some major points of what's happening in the world today. And so, praise the Lord for even so. Today is a day that the Lord has made, right, brother?
Yeah, it's a good day, man. And in a sense that no matter what's going on, hey, look, we are more than conquerors in Christ Jesus, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to talk about, folks. Thanks for joining us. Like, share, follow, tell your friends and neighbors and Facebook family or wherever. Just tell folks you got a couple of guys out here on the Texas border regions, and we're just offering you our input, our insight, our opinions from our perspective.
Yep, just trying to do the right thing and make people aware of what's happening, and keeping people abreast on what's going on in the world, and as even though we're believers, and it's important that we make our voices heard. A lot of people say, Frank, and have told me over the years, well, we shouldn't mix our faith and with our politics, and my answer is, well, my politics should reflect my faith.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's one of the reasons why I feel compelled to stand up and make my voice be heard.
And that's what happens, man. When you acquiesce, you just give up, man, without even putting up a fight, bro.
Yeah.
Because if the godly don't get into the different arenas of society, whether it's education, commerce, and certainly politics, the godless, the pagan, the non-believers will get into it.
Yeah.
And they'll do what they're doing, not just to America, but here specifically in Texas, man, where you have immoral, ungodly people that don't use the word of God as a foundation for their actions, for their votes, for the legislation they propose. They're pushing us to the brink,
Yeah.
And so that's why we have to get involved. And that's just, honestly, I just say, man, it's a coward's way out. They don't want to get involved. The Lord said, don't hide your light. We are salt and light.
Yep, and the Lord also reminds us to expose the deeds of darkness. And it's important that we understand that. I'm not saying out there that we go out there and we invoke violence in any way, things like that. There are times when we have to defend ourselves and we have the right to stand up and fight for our freedoms. But the reality is we have resources available to us at this point in time, to go out there and peacefully make our voices heard, but we do need to expose the deeds of darkness and help educate people. And it's because it's amazing to me, even I just got back from New Mexico, and where I'm from there in New Mexico, we're about 30-40 miles away from the border, but it's amazing to me, Frank, that I still get tons of questions about what's happening here on the border. Yeah. Even here in Del Rio, I get tons of questions about what's happening here on the border, because it just seems like so many people are out of touch. Like this past weekend here in this little sector alone, we had over 6,000 encounters within 48 hours, right? And the majority of them were released. And then, talking with agents, they just had a shootout the other day, right? Yeah. Like the day before yesterday.
Down in Eagle Pass.
Yeah, down in Eagle Pass. A female smuggler tried to shoot a couple of agents and tried to run them over with the vehicle that she was using, and agents had to return fire. It's the Wild West out here again, man, and it's incredible the things that are happening.
And the sad thing about it, man, because there's folks that say, well, hey, bad person, breaking the law, shouldn't try to run people over, let alone, law enforcement or whatever. Yeah, I agree with that. But on the flip side of that coin, Manny, is this is the environment. This is, I don't want to say ecosystem, but what I want to say here is these are the conditions that have been created. Yeah. First of all, by the left, by open borders, amnesty proponents. Biden administration certainly saying to the UN, hey, help us manage this mass migration plan that we're going to enact. This was back in 2021, right after he got sworn in.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, the federal government starts pouring gazillions, millions of dollars into building, soft-sided processing facilities up and down the border, from Brownsville out to California. They start working with a whole of government approach, is what they like to say, the whole of government, turning it into a massive smuggling operation.
Yeah.
And so then the cartels obviously are going to get involved because the drug routes they overlap, or they are the people smuggling routes. So the cartels have their hands on both sides of, on both aspects of it, moving people, moving drugs. And it's not just that, there's a whole bunch of other contraband that is moving into the country as well.
Yeah.
And so this is the environment, fast, supposedly easy money. And a lot of times it's hard times, easy money, hard times, whether in jail or in the case of this young lady getting shot up. And that's somebody's daughter.
Somebody's daughter, yeah.
Somebody's sister. And so the dynamics at work, Manny, are in some of these border communities, that where labor is cheap, the hourly wage is cheaper significantly compared to other parts of the country.
Yeah.
Even just going inland, say to San Antonio or just away from the border, cheaper wages. And so the allure of cheap, of fast, easy money, it's too much for some people, man.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's all interwoven, because you could say, well, hey, I'm glad my child won't do that. Well, look, these are the dynamics at work in our society where asymmetrical warfare, chipping away at Judeo-Christian foundation, Judeo-Christian principles, weakening morality, doing away with moral standards. It's all so interwoven. So, you cannot sit there and dissect part by part without at least admitting that there's going to be interconnection.
My son and I last night, we're talking about how a lot of these things, how certain behaviors are becoming accepted and normalized now that weren't, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me. Like I had, a person asked me a question one time. Well, what if a person goes to steal a piece of bread to feed his family? He's still a thief. Well, my question is, well, why didn't he just ask, the store owner? Why didn't he just ask, somebody for help? Why go to those extremes? Now I know there's some things that are maybe out of necessity may need to be done, things like that in certain regimes. But we don't live in right now in any of these communist regimes, that where those things have to be done. In the Border Patrol, when I was in the Border Patrol, it was always during as we got close to the holiday season, right, where we were making more arrests in alien smuggling. People were wanting to make money for the holidays and stuff, and so we had people that I never thought would do it, like teachers and real estate agents, and we were arresting the average person, that I never thought, mothers and daughters, and it was amazing to me, Frank, how quickly. Here's a couple $1,000s to take this person up the road, and they would do it, man.
Yeah, it's a normalization, of lawlessness. If you think about it, what is good is now evil, and what is evil is good, and certainly, the anti-God forces, and they, they make their way into every aspect of society, everything, man, business, education, government, the family, churches. The anti-God forces make their way in, and they want to normalize, ungodly behavior, abhorrent behavior, lawlessness. They want to normalize it, and it's just a gradual turning up the temperature, so that the society and persons are willing to accept more and more and more of lawlessness or government overreach. I've seen this commercial, and I'm sure you've seen it too, where it's a constitutional course that's offered. I think it's Hillsdale, one of those. But anyways, the way it leads in, it says, if the framers of the Constitution, our founding fathers and the framers, would not recognize America right now. They would not recognize it. My wife was watching a video the other evening, and I was doing some research or whatever, but I heard what the video was saying, and there was a woman saying that if the founding fathers were to see what's going on in the country right now, they'd mount their horses, they ride towards D.C., and there'd be some people hanging.
Oh my goodness! I'll tell you, if you ever read some of the speeches, and like I think we've talked about it before, like reading some of the Federalist letters and some of the speeches of our founding fathers. Oh my goodness, man, it's incredible. The things that are being accepted today were the things that our founding fathers and revolutionaries at that point in time, American revolutionaries at that point, stood up against when when they fought England, the crown, to gain freedom.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff that they fought against is being embraced and actually being taught in our schools,
Yeah.
and the patriotism that they had, reading their words and their speeches is incredible, but in our schools today, it's taught and it's normal to hate America.
Yeah, bro. And talking about hating America, it's kind of the irony of it, because there are certainly forces at work that hate America, and so what are they doing? They're seeking to exploit our good. They want to exploit the good. And what do I mean by that? Well, for instance, we tend to help nations. We've taken American pride, I guess you could say, and looking at situations around the world, and when there's a massive earthquake, we send our resources, our military, rescue, etc., send food and money, etc. Here in America, hey, look, we need to take care of the weak, the oppressed.
Yeah.
What is true religion? To take care of the widows and the orphan.
orphans, yeah.
And Jesus said, visit the prisoner in prison. Yes, certainly that's ministry. But what we see here is I guess you could say it, a perversion of the goodness, man. For instance, helping lower economic persons. There's a lot of programs in place, Manny, and I'm basing this off a comment that was made here about people that are using our EBT in the food programs. And in this case, it's, this lady says people get the cards, they get the privilege of getting food, buying food cheaper, and then they go sell it across the river.
Oh,
bro.
yeah.
And so I was communicating with a friend who was telling me about the high number of marriage certificates that are filed for right here in Valverde County. A lot of people, wanting to get married, and so look, that's good on the surface.
Right.
But I was actually going to write an article about it. When is marriage, not good? Because the word says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing," etc. So marriage is generally a good thing. But there are people who pervert Manny, who will get married so that they can marry a citizen,
Yeah.
so that they can then get the benefits.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's a marriage of convenience is what that turns into. And when you keep in mind, it's like I was saying, all these dynamics are interrelated, man. Here in the border, there's certainly so many dynamics at work.
Yeah.
And what we want is a clear national sovereign lines.
Yes.
Don't enter our house illegally. Don't come against, disrespect us by entering our country illegally. And then what they're doing is they're adding, salt into the wound, taking advantage of the processes and systems and programs intended for Americans.
Yeah.
And I think that's why there's a lot of outrage, bro, at the amounts of money that are being sent, like, for instance, to the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Over 113 billion, and then they just added $10 billion more. I think it was last night, Tucker had a segment on, our Treasury Department personally flying to the Ukraine and handing over a check for
1.2 billion dollars.
billion dollars, bro, to the president, who was planted. Remember, America set up the regime in the Ukraine. You just go back to earlier 2000s, bro. America had a hand in intervening with the Ukrainian government and putting in place persons they wanted in place. Why? A lot of times, it's to do to push, certain ideologies, certain agenda, but always interwoven in that, Manny, is money. Money laundering, money changing hands, American tax dollars going overseas to corrupt, planted puppet, presidents, and then getting back into the pockets of American politicians, man.
I put this video up on the screen right here for everybody to see, but this is U.S. Treasury Secretary Yellen arriving in the Ukraine in a secret meeting. Well, that wasn't so secret, right? Because it was aired everywhere.
Yeah.
But she goes to the Ukraine, and she takes with her a check of our taxpayer dollars of $1.2 billion, and then pledges more money.
Yeah.
Right. That Zelensky can expect more money to come.
Yeah.
Right. While our own citizens in Palestine, Ohio,
Yeah.
are suffering.
Yeah.
Right. And so here goes Biden with our tax dollars to support a corrupt government.
Yeah.
Right. And then, matter of fact, Biden went to Ukraine. Was it last week? A few days last week, right?
Yeah.
And I believe to make sure that his assets were still safe.
Yeah.
That's what I believe, that him and Hunter's assets were still safe, and takes our money over there. But yet Trump shows up in Palestine, Ohio. President Trump shows up in Palestine, Ohio, with his own money.
Yeah.
And helps the citizens of the United States.
And of course, the haters come out, it's grandstanding or whatever. Hey, look, he went over there as the 45th president, and that should have been the American president. Dude, if he can fly across the ocean, to go visit the Ukraine president, and then a few days later, our treasury goes over there, they're greasing the skids, man.
Yeah.
It's all about lining up their ducks in a row, and it's about massive amounts of money. You know what this reminds me of? Other nations, bro. One president gets elected, whether it's, democratically or by coup or whatever.
Well,
but the outgoing president will clean out the money house.
Oh yeah, brother, and it's it happens right across the border every time a new president comes in, right? I mean, they all of a sudden they move to Spain, right, or something. It's amazing to me, but
And they leave the country
and they leave
broker.
the country, yeah. And so what's amazing to me, brother, is that I don't think people realize what's happening between Zelensky and Biden. Zelensky made an investment in the Biden family, right? I mean, he wasn't it? It was Hunter Biden, right? It was a few years ago that he was working for. I always forget how to pronounce that company.
Yeah, that energy company
that energy
over
company,
there.
right? But he was paid $83,000 a month.
Yeah.
$83,000 a month from Ukraine, right? In a ceremonial position that had no decision making, nothing, right? And $83,000 a month.
Yeah.
And from Ukraine, and then of course his art sold for like $30,000, right? He's renting houses for $50,000 a month. This is insane to me. And so yeah, it's only normal, or it would be logical that Biden would go over there and make sure his assets are protected, right? While this is all happening. And so it's amazing to me that all the stuff that they accused, and now they're blaming Trump, President Trump, for the derailment.
Yeah.
In Ohio,
Jeez.
right? And I don't know if you heard. I hate giving them any airtime. I really do. The women on the View. But Joy Behar came out the other day and said, "Look, the reason this has happened is because this is who you voted for, Ohio." And you could hear people in the audience like, "Oh my gosh,
this is
really,
crazy."
she said that." My question is, how long are they going to? It's amazing that they keep those people on the air, but
Because there's a segment of America that buys into it, bro. They lap it up, man. I mean, it's like a lollipop. It's like ice cream in the summer. It's like lemonade on a hot day. They love that stuff,
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, the other aspect of it, Department of Transportation, but whatever, goes over there, and it's about white racism. That's why it happened, because of racism.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, this ideology.
Buttigieg.
Yeah. So if you got friends that still call themselves Democrats, look, they need to leave that demonic, destructive ideology, the agenda that it seeks to destroy. If America goes down, man, think about this. Amongst the islands of nations, and when I say the islands, they're not all island nations. We're on continents or whatever. Right. But what I'm saying is that if America, the light of freedom, the light of what America stands for, if that light goes out, where do you go?
Right.
Where do you go, bro? Do you go up north to Canada where Trudeau is a dictator?
Yeah.
Do you go down to socialist, Mexico, because it's largely socialist down there.
Right.
And I saw an interesting post, a picture, bro, where hundreds of thousands of Mexicans are coming out and they're protesting their elections out there. Meanwhile, here in America, bro, people get mad at the computer screen.
Yeah. First world problems, right? First world problems.
But if the light of what America is snuffed out, where do freedom-loving people go?
And these liberals know that, bro. These leftist liberals know that. I mean, look at like all these celebrities, these leftist celebrities, right? Well, if Trump becomes president, I'm moving out of the country. None of them left.
Yeah.
None of them left, bro, because they know. But they keep preaching that rhetoric,
Yeah.
right? And then it creates hate. You know, in Judaism we have a tradition that one of the worst sins is, of course, idolatry. But besides that, equal to that is baseless hate.
Yeah.
Baseless hate, and it's amazing to me, brother, because that's what these people are creating. They're creating baseless hate.
Yeah.
You know, all the things that the Democrats do, they accuse conservatives of doing.
Yeah.
You know, the Democratic Party hates life. It hates life.
Hates freedom, bro.
It hates freedom, right?
Their agenda is certainly anti-freedom, anti-America. And real quick, I just want to get into the comments about Congress. Look, there are very few people, honestly, very few people that are actually trying to fight against this in Congress. But the vast majority, they're in on it, man. They're in on it,
Yeah.
and that's why you see this representatives, pouring more and more money, voting for more money. And some of them might be misguided, bro. Some of them, are surface dwellers just the same. They're just skimming along the surface, going off sound bites. I think when their eyes start getting open, when they start seeing the information and they start realizing how all the dots are connected, that they realize, oh crap, for instance, we cannot continue funding Ukraine. Now, not when we have American necessity, American needs, and our congressman here in this district just co-sponsored, is signed on board to sending F-16s to the Ukraine. Hey, F-16s to the Ukraine. Hey,
This reset button, to help reestablish relationships with Russia or calm the waters. And I always thought to myself, you know what? What's going to happen is the Democrats are going to want to start a war with Russia. That's always been my feeling, that the Democrats want to start a war with Russia for some reason, and we see. I think I see the stage being set. I want to real quick put this up here, and I'm for some reason we're having problems with our internet server. That hashtag that's going around.
no, I hadn't. I heard about Katie Hobbs, but not that hashtag.
I saw that hashtag here this morning, and I think for good reason, right? We came across some compelling articles in this. And I'm gonna put the picture up there that you sent me. By Paul Davis, right? If true, this is massive 100-page investigation report. Harris Thaler law firm reveals Katie Hobbs, top Arizona state, and
Certainly, and the interplay, with government, it all, fuses together, and certainly, crime, corruption, all that stuff. You can find it anywhere. But here in this border regions, we have. Man, I just lost my thought. Somebody texted me. But anyways, here in this border regions, we have this added element, Manny, of where we don't have, some of the. I don't want to call it luxuries, but
conveniences.
Resources that other communities have. For instance, healthcare, pensions, manufacturing. I know a lot of people that have to go out of town, for medical services. I was in San Antonio the other day, and the person after me, I checked in. The person that checked in after me was from Eagle Pass.
Wow.
Right down the road. And so these are all elements. And meanwhile, like we started off the show, we've got all this other stuff going on with the traffic moving through our area, and it is impacting us, and it is, money that's affecting us. It's our tax dollars that could be better spent in our communities. And it's just not the socialist, agenda of the left of the Democrat Party. We also have a lot of globalists, bro. We have globalists that have infiltrated the Republican Party. They're infiltrating the conservative patriot, movement. Calling themselves conservatives, and it's about greed and it's about their ideology. And here in this district, at least some of the county executive committees, man, are going to do something about a very immoral and unprincipled Representative Tony Gonzalez with this censure movement that's going on.
There's already 6 or 7 counties, right?
Well, it's probably up more around 12, 14.
Oh, wow.
From what some stuff I saw over the weekend. And think about it, bro. 29 counties in this district who are fed up, tired with politics as usual with this sold-out politician, Tony Gonzalez, the Republican, and they're moving to censure him, at least from what I see, 12, 13, 14 counties. have signed on to support it, aside from the original county. And it's going to go to the State Republican Executive Committee this weekend.
Wow.
This weekend, the first weekend in March, they're meeting up in Austin, the executive board for the Republican Party of Texas. And one of the resolutions they're going to have to vote on is a resolution to censor Tony Gonzalez.
And so when the censor happens, what can result from that?
So one thing, it's a vote of no confidence for one. You stink. You suck. You're not upholding the values of the Republican Party. You're not upholding the platform of the Republican Party. You're not delivering for your constituency, for your constituents in the Republican Party. This is why we have the primary, is to elect the most conservative, America First, party-based person. Right. And so he's not living up to that. The other thing that happens, from what I understand, is it's a removal of lack of support. Hey, you can call yourself a Republican, in the general sense, but if the censure goes through, the Republican Party of Texas, disavows them. It's hey, you're a bad Republican. We're not going to support you. And there could be some financial, withholding of resources. Like for instance, they do a mail out. So they could for candidates in general. So they could say, we're not going to send out your mail out, and that's money.
And so, and those mail-outs help out a lot, right? Yeah. And we kind of saw that happening the last primary, the last election. Some counties going towards that, but then of course there were some people who were still just faithful to the party rather than faithful to the country, and so anyway, it's good that people are starting to call out, but we kind of expressed this was happening, or that because right away it seems like he did it overtly, right? As soon as he got back reelected,
just in your face,
reelected. Boom! He votes right along with the Democrats, right? Right along with Pelosi. And what's amazing to me, Frank, is he was accusing you of standing with Pelosi, and the first thing he does is he votes right along with Pelosi and her Democrats.
Yeah, he sent out some mailers and had the digital billboard signs that saying, "A vote for Frank is a vote for Pelosi."
Yeah.
And so, what is the first official act? One of the first that he votes against the rules package.
Yep.
And by now, I think that even the people that were chicken little skies falling syndrome, running around saying how the 20 holding out, holding the speakership, holding it at bay until they enacted some fundamental, rules to go forward in the new Congress. Some of it has to do with doing away with earmarks. Has to do with providing more time for representatives to look at bills and what's contained within the bill versus, hey, you're going to have to vote for this, 1,000-page monstrosity.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out what's in it. That kind of stuff.
And then now he's standing against Republicans who are for border security.
Yep, Chip Roy.
Chip Roy, he's coming against them and
making it very public.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And again, it's amazing to me because, well, I know why. Because in there, again, I've said it before, Chip Roy wants to defund the NGOs, which we should defend defund
them.
these NGOs, these non-government organizations, because they're nothing but smuggling organizations.
Yeah.
Or transportation for the cartels, and so. But of course, that's where Tony gets a lot of his money from the NGOs and his support for the NGOs. There's a new federal report that had just come out, and I'm pretty sure you're aware of it, right? This new federal report by the Energy Department concluded and we're kind of switching gears here because we're getting short on time. That the Energy Department came out with this new report that COVID. And as soon as I mentioned it, we're probably going to get warnings again from YouTube and Facebook about removing our broadcast. But the COVID-19 virus most likely originated, you ready for this, in China. in a lab leak in China. And so
my thought on that, man, it was like, you had people, blasting this out early on, man. People early on saying, this is it's a manufactured man-made virus here.
Yeah.
And of course, you start getting shut down. Anybody saying that is some kind of, radical conspiracy theorist type of person. But you had some people out there saying they've engineered the virus and weaponized it.
Yeah.
And so now, Manny, as these reports are coming out, the travesty of all this, the tragedy in all this, and the criminality in all this, Manny, is that people died.
People died. Yeah.
People died, and it was something that was manufactured, engineered, and our own government, and not just the United States government, a worldwide movement to suppress the truth and to instill fear in people and push them. And now there's so many reports coming out about the side effects of the vax in people, bro. I mean, everything from heart diseases to autoimmune. If a person was already had autoimmune deficiencies, the vax hyper
Amplifies that.
amplified it.
And now there's reports coming out of one of the rising killers amongst young people are heart issues.
Yeah, amongst the young.
Amongst the young. And I just read an article this morning about a young athlete who collapsed on the field, and during practice and died of a heart attack. And we're seeing that more and more each day, and people who are below the age of 50 that are dying because of heart inflammation,
Thing in all this, Manny, is this fear blanket that they threw over the country, and this coercive, encroachment by our government in the freedom to move about freely, in our freedom as Americans, let alone the rest of the world. But as Americans, there were people, Manny, that could not go visit sick family members.
Yeah.
A lot of people died alone in nursing homes without family able to go share those last few moments to even say goodbye, bro.
Yeah.
People in hospital beds that were not allowed to be visited. And that, bro, is criminal. That is criminal, and people need to be held accountable for that.
One of the most compelling videos that I remember, Frank, or one of the most compelling events that I remember is one of our Border Patrol agents was dying, and agents were because of it had to pass by outside while with him and his family, his family through the windows looking at him because they weren't allowed to go and spend the last moments, with him. One of my favorite videos I'm gonna play here real quick is when President Trump continues to call it the China virus, and I'm gonna put this up on the screen here real quick and play it for everybody.
Chinese virus. There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China.
I love that, bro, because it's amazing to me that we had the Spanish flu, right?
Yeah.
No one's complaining about, well, that's racist, right?
Yeah.
You had other diseases coming from different countries that they attach the names on, right? And yet all of a sudden this is racist.
Yeah, and so that's just the wokeism, man. That's what's making us so freaking weak, bro. And it's look. Part of the reason I brought up that picture of those millions of Mexicans, protesting their elections over there in Mexico. Hey, look, that's happening in another country, okay, and let alone the fact that they're coming over here as well. Let's just kind of separate that a little bit. In that, they're saying no. They're saying we're not going to tolerate this, and here in America, maybe because of our culture, because of our system, the rule of law, because of our Judeo-Christian founding, because of the fact that we're not, while we have socialist aspects to, some of our programs, spreading the wealth kind of stuff, we are still predominantly a constitutional republic, but that is in trouble. And so, we cannot afford as a free people, bro, to continue to sit on the sidelines. That's why we do this show. That's why we're, active in the community. That's why we've been out there reporting. That's why, others like me and others have tried to get into the political arena to have a change, to have an effect, to try to stop those busts from going over the cliff, bro.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of folks, I get private messages, why aren't we protesting and stuff? Look, folks, that is certainly a First Amendment right that we have to peacefully assemble, to redress our grievances with our officials to let them know what we don't like. And part of it is the legislative process, but certainly part of it also is peaceful protest. Somebody at the beginning of the show mentioned Martin Luther King. Hey, look, it's certainly that is something that we as Americans can and should do. We can and should, peacefully assemble, peacefully protest, peacefully make our voices known. Because, Manny, that is certainly something that the framers included. Why? Because they didn't want to get to the point where there was another revolution, bro.
Yeah.
They didn't want more bloodshed. There's a lot of folks out there that are warmongers, bro, and certainly, the neocons and the globalists, like Tony Gonzalez and others that are pushing for more funding to this war in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
They want that. But I always remember, and I read it somewhere, the person that wants war the least and is more vehemently opposed to war is the soldier, is the fighting person, because they know the cost of bloodshed. They know the cost of war. It's a horrible thing, bro. So it's nothing glorious about it, and so we need to try to avert it. But at the same, and that's the balance. What do we as free Americans still? And I say that, man, based on principle, because look, if you look at the reality of our situation, Manny, how free are we? How free are we? You drive down the road, you get pulled over. You're in an area that you can be there, certainly as a free person, and you get questioned.
Yep.
And we are taxed and regulated. To death. We have to pay so many fees. Hidden fees, user fees. It's just crazy, and part of that's capitalism and commerce, etc. But part of it too is just government trying to take our hard-earned money, man.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, and we're seeing how justice is being perverted even more so, and how the left has their own idea of justice, as long as it conforms to their ideology of so-called woke justice. But the true justice is criticized and persecuted, and the truth, the same thing. The truth is persecuted and criticized. And I remember, reading, throughout history, that if you believed in God and served in your local congregation, that was considered honorable. Now it's like a liability, right? People want to stay away from those who are endorsed from religious believers in the Lord and whatnot. But there's this I always saw this video where they're interviewing Emily Kors is her name. She was a foreman for a grand jury to subpoena President Trump.
Yeah.
And it's a great example of how there's really no regard for justice on the left.
Yeah.
Right. It's insane. And I'm gonna play it real quick, and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
I wanted to hear from the former president, but honestly, I kind of wanted to subpoena the former president because I got to swear everybody in. And so I thought it'd be really cool to get 60 seconds with President Trump of me looking at him and being like, do you solemnly swear? And me getting to swear him in. I kind of just thought that would be an awesome.
The only reason, Frank, she wanted to subpoena Trump was just because she thought it'd be cool to look at him and say, do you solemnly swear?
Yeah.
Where's the justice in that, brother? I mean, where's the regard for justice and any regard for the rule of law in this? There is none.
Yeah, bro. Man, it's just sad. It's a pathetic, honestly, picture, bro, of life in America, man. I mean, and it's been a steady, just drip, 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 drip of water per se, eroding the rock. And so, in this case, what is the rock? Not certainly Jesus Christ is the rock, but America and everything it stands for, and the water dripping on it are the anti-freedom, anti-America, anti-God forces.
Right.
Just steadily dripping, dripping, dripping. Because given enough time, even drops of water will erode, something as strong as rock.
Yeah.
Just give it time, and it will erode it. And so that's what's been at work. It goes back to the garden, man. I mean, the enemy has always been, prowling around to seek, to destroy, to pervert, and to, put into captivity those people that are free. We are born free, bro. Endowed with our Creator with certain rights, but certainly forces are working against that, and so people just need to be awake, not woke. And this young lady here, she just put it all out there, man. Put it out there for the world to see just how, you know, immature, man, and just the way she just glibly, just approaches the whole thing. It's pretty sad, man. It's kind of a pathetic picture.
It is.
And I hear she may actually be in trouble for talking about some of that, because it was part of a grand jury process.
Right.
And so I saw her being labeled as a criminal, etc. And if she violated the law, then that's certainly applicable.
Yeah, and she should be. She should be, right. Going out there and giving that type of information, she should never be allowed to serve on a grand jury ever again. In regards to what she said, but the reality is, they'll probably give her multiple opportunities. She's young and this and that, But it's just amazing to me, Frank. It's amazing to me how the left embraces this lawlessness, right? And there's no regard for justice whatsoever. And then back to what's happening with this, this COVID report, and the millions of lives lost and millions of jobs lost as well. People should be put in prison for this.
Yeah,
they should be put in prison for this cover up, this leftist cover. Even the media, even those in the media that were reporting, it knew very well what was happening.
It just the operation, I guess if you could call it, just this massive operation that was put in place, and certainly the left is involved, and the media certainly plays along, but also, bro, look, if you could say on the right, and on the right being, the Republican Party and conservative movement, patriot movement, etc. There's certainly elements on the right as well that play along with that go into it. A lot of it is because of greed, basically. And I kind of use this, and it's very loose, bro. The left is ideology, and certainly greed is there.
Yeah.
But on the right, predominantly greed, it would seem to me. Yeah. And certainly some ideology in there, from like, for instance, from the neoconservatives, the warmongers, pushing their agenda, etc. But the problem is across the board. It's globalism, and part of that, Manny, just goes back to the Bible, bro. About the God of this world. Yeah. And so when that term is used, it's the God of this world, who is Satan, is using
little g, right?
Is using the systems and using the processes and using everything that's in place, human government, etc. He's using it, and people play into that, and always in the background is going to be that aspect of good versus evil. And that's why we're reminded to lift our eyes towards heaven, where our help comes from, but also not just for the temporary solution to our problems, the temporary rescue, Manny, but the eternal rescue. Maranatha, come, Lord, quickly come. Because and that should be the cry. That should be the cry of our spirit as it's joined to the Spirit of God. Yeah. Is, look, Lord, we'll do what we can here, and we'll stumble about, and we'll try to get some direction, but at the same time, this is not our home. Yeah. And the troubles of this life will eventually fade away, bro. They wouldn't even be a memory.
Yep.
They would not even be a memory.
And talking about that as we're coming to a close, there are some things that are happening in our country right now that it's pretty been amazing to me. As a Jewish believer in Yeshua, people get confused on this, but we don't call ourselves Christians. We call ourselves Jewish believers or Messianic believers. But of course we identify together completely because we Christians and Jews, and we believe in the same Messiah. There are just some theological differences and some things that we observe and Christians don't observe, but it's amazing to me what is happening in our country today. In spite of all this, the revival that they're calling a revival there in Asbury, that's in Ohio, right? That university in Ohio, the Asbury, where all the students are gathered together for prayer that have been going on for a few weeks there. And then, as we close, I want to just show this clip It's the trailer for that new movie Jesus Revolution that is coming out. I just want to show it real quick, and then we'll close out the show with that.
I am not a square.
I think we should invite Greg this weekend.
What's this weekend?
These people are hippies, rebels against old-fashioned authority.
I think these kids need help.
What they need is a bath.
You're passing judgment on people you know nothing about. Maybe that's why your church is so empty.
When God walks in here, brings me a hippie, I'll ask him what it's all about, because I do not understand.
This house has a very good vibe. There is an entire generation searching.
Slow down, man, slow down.
Just in all the wrong places. If you want to reach my people, you need to speak to them in a language they understand.
If I bring them in, I'm going to lose my job.
We can only walk through doors open to us. In your church, that's a door that's shut.
It's based on true events of this pastor, right, who helped reach basically a generation that started there in California, what's called the Jesus movement, the Jesus Revolution. And the reason I pointed out, the reason I mentioned that as a Jewish believer in Yeshua, believe it or not, the Jesus Revolution, Frank, had immense impact on Jewish people. I'm part of an organization as well called the IMCS, the International Alliance of Messianic Congregations and Synagogues, and the Messianic Jewish Alliance of America. That's who I'm licensed with through as a rabbi. And but the founders, or not the founders, but the leaders, the majority of them were saved during this time. They came to faith in Jesus and Yeshua at this time. And the Messianic Jewish movement basically came to prominence, or not prominence, but came to be recognized in the 1900s, early 1900s, 1911, 1910, around there. And then it kind of was losing traction. But then in the 70s, the Jesus Revolution started. A whole bunch of Jews got saved, came to faith in Jesus, and reignited the Messianic Jewish movement, right, to go out and help spread the gospel to the Jewish people, as it says in Romans chapter 1, verse 16, to the Jew first. And so the reason I point this out is because a lot of my fellow rabbis are praising God that the timing of all this in regards to what is happening, because we believe that as Jews, we believe that a great number of Jewish people are going to come to faith right before the Messiah returns. And we see things. We saw, that this number of Jews coming to faith in the 70s with the Jesus movement. We see, I read testimonies of Asbury where Jewish people went over there as well, came out believing in Jesus, in Yeshua. Whether it's a true revival or not, it still remains to be seen. But the reality is, I kind of go by the words of Rav Shul, the Apostle Paul. Whether it be by dishonesty or by gain, the gospel is being preached, right? Yeah. And so those are the things that we have to remember, that the gospel, is being preached, and people, and the word of God does not return void. So the reason I bring this up, Frank, is because in spite of all these things that are happening that we talked about today, God's hand is moving, right? And what's incredible to me as well is that this week is we're going to be celebrating Purim, or Purim, right, which is the Feast of Lots, and where we read the whole book of Esther, and during our synagogue services. And I don't know if you know this, but Esther is one of two books in the whole Bible where the name of God isn't mentioned. The other book is the Song of Solomon. But the reason it's amazing that the book of Esther doesn't mention the name of God is because in spite of all that was happening, when Haman was trying to kill off the Jews, and all these edicts were going out against the Jewish people to eradicate them, God's hand was moving. Yeah. Right? Even if his name wasn't being mentioned.
Yeah, and that's one of the key things. We go, you go through your studies, I go through my studies, and throughout that entire story, Esther and all that God is not mentioned, but it's in the scene, in the behind the scenes, like you said, the movement. And I just think, Manny, about legalism, basically, about legalistic perspectives. God can move in many different ways, man. I always think to one of my favorite scriptures out of Acts chapter 17, where it says that out of one man he created the nations of the earth. Yeah. And he set their times and their boundaries, and it says, so that perhaps as they stumble about, they might find him.
Seek him and find him. Yeah.
Because God, life honestly is about stumbling around.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know what the next second holds, let alone tomorrow, man. And you know, and so we can be assured of this, that God is moving, God is at work. And we have confessed him as our Lord and Savior. That's what it takes. Believe and confess. Yeah. Believe and confess, and you shall be saved. And so, you know, people get bogged down. There's a lot of work to be done, and this is something I wrestle with. You know, I just the last 4 years since I retired, been very involved with the political in the political arena, Manny, and that's partly because these politicians are making decisions that are affecting the rest of us every day, bro. And it's a terrible thing for the leaders to be, you know, pushing the people into oblivion, into chaos, and into, you know, destruction. Moses led the people through the wilderness and eventually to the promised land, you know, but here we have people leading to destruction. And so people like to get bogged down in tiny little things, where the big picture is people need the Lord, you know, and once they find the Lord, then God has a mission for believers.
Yep.
And what is your mission? What are you supposed to do? Some of it, you know, be a good family member in whatever capacity. But if you're a person of commerce, if you're a businessman, if you're an elected official, if you're an educator, you know, whatever, you know, God can use you in those arenas as well.
Oh, yeah.
And people need to stay involved.
Yeah, and you know, and again, you know, if you read the book of Esther, you know, God gave the people strength, the Jewish people strength, to stand up and to fight back against those that were trying to destroy them, rather than just lay down and hey, well, let's see how many of us survive, you know. And so, but that's because that's not the way you do things. So God has given us the ability, or the knowledge of self-preservation, right? But we must do so righteously. You know, Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, says, you know, it's okay to be angry, but don't sin. So you use that anger, you know, to compel you to do good. You know, like I always use the example of Mother, you know, the founder of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, right? You know, when her son was killed by a drunk driver, you know, but she became angry. But instead of taking that anger and going out and seeking vengeance against drunk drivers, she created an organization to help people become, you know, knowledgeable in the dangers of drunk driving.
So if we talk about anger, Manny, I just got this picture, bro, because you know you threw up the Jesus Revolution movie up there, and I know people are gonna, you know, gnash their teeth and complain about that. And it's so funny because it's right on the heels after that, the heels of you showing that you said God uses it all. Yeah. He uses it all, the good, the bad. You know, the gospel is being preached, and so talking about anger, you know, Jesus went to the temple and he got mad. Yep. You know, I mean, he turned over tables and he drove people out, grabbed whips and drove people out, right?
Yeah, righteous indignation.
Righteous indignation. Yeah. And why was he mad? Was he mad because they were preaching, you know, baptism in order to be saved? Yeah. Were they preaching, you know, good works versus, you know, as a, you know, as the more heavier aspect of salvation, good works, and go out? Were they? Did he get mad because they were using the King James Bible only? Was that what that was about? No, man. It was about you know, the perversion and the desecration of what God really intended to do, bro. Yeah. And so it's just that people just get hung up, and I'm like, look, man, go watch the movie. Use it as part of your repertoire, you know, part of your toolkit. To talk to people.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had a few Jewish friends, man, you know, who grew up Orthodox Jews, and how they, you know, people felt about the Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson. You know, they got saved because of that.
Wow.
As a result of that movie, the rabbis told them. Their rabbis told them, don't go see this movie, it's anti-Semitic. And one of them said, well, you know, as a young teenager, when you tell a teenager don't do something, we're going to go do it, right?
Yeah, so just to see what all the hype's
about. What all the hype is about. So he, you know, a couple of my Jewish friends went to go see it. And like I said, they grew up in, Orthodox homes and went to Hebrew school and whatnot in the synagogues. And, now they're involved in Messianic synagogues, but they went to go see that movie and they're like, oh my gosh. So they started reading the New Covenant because of it as a result.
Wow. Yeah.
And they found out, hey, this is a Jewish book. These are Jewish authors. This is a Jewish Messiah. He fulfilled what we've been taught all our lives. And now they go out and they preach the gospel. And so,
Powerful, man.
Yeah, so people were attacking that movie as anti-Semitic, but still God used it to save a few friends of mine. And now they're preaching the gospel, you know. And so I just don't want to discount, everything, because, I have a friend that was saved because of a horse, man. He was a musician. He was playing at a bar. And as he's playing his songs, the horse stuck his head through the window, and he's like, "This is what my life has resulted. This is where I'm at now." So he's like, "I need God, man."
Yeah.
So he went out and he got saved, bro.
Yeah, I just think of so many things. Real quick, man. I know we've gone over a little bit, but just Sodom and Gomorrah, bro.
Yeah.
Terrible place. Terrible. The Lord ended up destroying it.
Yep.
And there were godly people there, but focus on this. What did He do before He destroyed it and before He took the people out? He sent his messengers, bro.
Yep.
He sent messengers into the vilest, most evil place, comparably speaking. He sent His messenger into a place, and the apostles were warned.
Yeah.
You will be, you will become martyrs in essence. You're gonna die for a cause.
Yep.
And of course, of all the supreme example, Jesus left heaven.
Yeah.
He left heaven. He came and took on human flesh.
Yeah.
And became one of us to lead us into eternity, bro. And so I just want to say this morning, man, don't be so bound up. Don't be legalistic, and just, be free in the sense of, all right, God, I live in this world. I'm not of this world. And that's why we need discernment.
Yep.
And that's why we need wisdom.
Yep.
How do we live in this, at times, pagan society? How do we live in this, in the depravity around us and the slow decay, the decay that is taking place around us? How do we live in this world?
Yep.
Primarily to lead others to you.
Yeah, I tell a lot of religious leaders, but when I go preach at different congregations, throughout my ministry, is that God is beyond our statements of faith and our bylaws and our polity. He's God. It's not up to us to determine what He can and cannot do.
Yeah.
And so we have to. That's why I rely upon His mercy, upon His sovereignty, and what He does. As long as the gospel is going forward, we'll praise the Lord. I trust in Him. As much as some things may be weird to me or irk me, He's God and I'm not. So praise the Lord, and that's why I always appreciate the Word of God, the truth, and the knowledge of the truth shall set you free. Folks, I want to thank you so much for joining us here this morning. And again, you can visit us on our website at talkaboutitlive.com. You can email us at talkaboutitlive@gmail.com if you have questions, concerns, comments. I'm still working to update some articles and whatnot as well. And but folks, we would love to have you visit us on our webpage also, and just drop us a line. And we want to thank you so much for joining us. We also have a little support button there if you want to help support the cause as well. We still try to go out and do what we got to do, but sometimes it costs a little bit. And so. But with that, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us here this morning, and we'll say God bless you, God bless America, and God bless Texas.
See ya.